All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go through the morning focus list. Hope everybody's having a good morning so far. So first off, we're going to go over BETR. This is Better Home and Finance Holding. This one came up on my radar yesterday with a high volume break of the bull flag. Now, obviously, this one has made a pretty big move to the upside and then consolidated inside the flag. Came right down to the bottom of the moving averages. That's going to be your 21 EMA, part of the EMA cloud that I use, the 10 and the 21 here. It had a 1 day squeeze, but that's I don't really take those into consideration. I like to see at least 3 to 5 days of squeeze setting up. But you could also see all of your anchored VWAPs are also stacked, right? So you've got your high volume in yellow, you've got your swing high in red, you've got your swing low in green, and you got your month to date in purple. So this one's also gapping up another 4.5. It was as high as 6% this morning. So this is not one I would necessarily chase, but definitely one to observe. You might get, later down the road, maybe some consolidation into a moving average, something along those lines for an entry possibly. And I'd be looking at 94.06 as, your blow off top here as your target. So looks pretty good. All right, next up is a name I know we are mostly familiar with from a couple of months back. I think it was around August, somewhere around here. I think news came out that Debbie Schwasserman, representative in Congress, had taken a position in SSYS. I believe she sits on the House Armed Service Committee, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, kind of sparked my interest in this name. Built a position, over the following, couple of weeks, and yesterday was rewarded on a break of 12.15 to the upside. So this morning we're gapping up around 1.85%. If this can get through 1282, then I think we've got room up to this fib cluster here at 1339, and then potentially to the next cluster at 1463. So yeah, I mean, this one's looking pretty good as well. Again, this is more of a patience play. I think my contracts, the 12.5 calls, they're in the money already, and those are going out to March of next year. So I'm just going to be patient, remain patient and let it do its thing. We're over all of the key anchored VWAPs. We're over the moving average cloud. All we've got above here pretty much are fibs. If we zoom out a little bit, you can see this already has price history upwards of $20. So yeah, I mean, even higher, 30, 40, up to $56. So, it's not to say that we're going there right away, but I think, price action is looking pretty constructive. You've got the change of character low, you've got a higher low, you've got a lower high, a higher high, you've got a higher low, another higher low, another higher low. What we're looking for is that higher high here and build off of, potentially a constructive rising channel here. So you can see, that would be the channel that we're looking for. We just broke through that center channel, which you could see had acted as a turbulent zone in the past. So again, I'd be looking for maybe $15 to $16 top of channel test on SSYS. All right, next up is Hood. Don't need to talk too much about Hood. We all know what it is and what it does. And you can see we back tested the swing low anchored VWAP on Friday, bounced. We gapped up yesterday. We're setting up inside of today's candle. Now, I'm already positioned over 100. I might be looking to add some more over 137 for a target of 150 to the upside. Do have a fib cluster here around 140, so just keep that in mind. And we don't have any squeezes setting up here, but it does look pretty good. All right, MDB is another one we've been talking about for some time. Again, I'm already positioned in this trade. I might add some more if we can get over this 329.46 level. So could see a move up to 337, possibly 355 on a breakout. And then ultimately, I'm looking at targets of 368, 376, 382. This is probably the target range on the prior high breakout that I'd be looking for, around 376 to 382. Now, of course, we could always extend higher, and we could also fail lower. So these are just kind of guidelines, 355, 368. That's going to be your 1272 fib extension, your 1618 fib extension, and then this zone up above. What I really liked about this setup, and what I still like about it, is the squeeze setup. So this one started to squeeze the last week of September. So you've got a daily squeeze that's lasted just about a month, right? And you could see the compression inside of the bull flag. Now let's take a quick peek at earnings. Earnings, they're not out until, looks like December 8th. So a lot of time for a potential early earnings run. So yeah, keep an eye on MDB. I like shares over contracts. Contracts are a little thin and a little spread between the bid and ask. So if you are going to play contracts, you just got to make sure, try and get in on the mid and buy yourself some time on this one. All right, next up is eBay. So eBay, another one that I've been stalking for probably about 3 weeks now. It's been on the focus list every week for the last 3 weeks. You can see another one that set up in a TTM squeeze for over a month. Squeeze did, actually, let me turn after hours off for a second. So squeeze has not fired yet. With after hours on, it looks like the squeeze might fire today. I don't like using after hours for the squeeze. So it's important that if you are using the TTM squeeze, make sure you're turning after hours off, because it will affect the results of the squeeze scan. So, but in any event, this one looks pretty close to squeeze firing, right? You're above your key moving average cloud. You're above all of your anchored VWAPs, and we came up to the 618 fib extension at 96.05 and failed yesterday. So just something to keep in mind. We are setting up inside that. The other thing to note, we do have earnings coming up on, looks like October 29th. So that's next Wednesday, I believe. So we are getting a little bit of a pre-earnings run. So if you're not already positioned on this breakout, just be mindful of earnings next week. All right, we already talked about Hood. Apple is another one. Broke through the wedge and back-tested and held the cluster of anchored VWAPs here between 251 and 253. I've been forecasting a wave 3 move to 283 to 284 on Apple for, I would say for a couple of months now. So we're well on our way. I mean, basically, I forecasted it on the breakout of this range zone at 215. So far so good. Nice stair step maneuvers up the channel here, right? Things don't just move up in a straight line. You push higher, you pull back, you push higher, you pull back. This one happened to pull right back to the swing low anchored VWAP. And then, again, as I mentioned, the wedge breakout over your cluster of your cluster of VWAPs and the wedge, and also pushing through all-time highs at 260. So what I'd watch for, maybe a back test of this 258 to 260 zone, but another one that has earnings coming up. Let's see, I think that's next week on the 30th. So I think that's Thursday. So again, it's getting a little bit of a pre-earnings run. I like to look at these types of trades. Like MDB is a great example. That one doesn't have earnings for another 3 weeks or so. And looking at getting in and positioning early for a pre-earnings run, you tend to see that happen more often than not. Last two, we got Tesla. So Tesla's starting to make a little bit of a run here into earnings. TTM squeeze is setting up in a slingshot, right? So you got momentum shifting from the downside to the upside. You've got the wedge breakout. You've got potential inside days setting up possibly today, and then you've got earnings tomorrow. So we're already positioned. Our average on this trade is somewhere in the 290 range. So we've got plenty of cushion to hold through earnings. I would look at, any earnings dip maybe down into the 350 to 383 zone as a potential add-on buy. But we're looking for that rip. We want to see a rip up to 480 and then maybe 480 plus. And then last but not least is QCOM. So this one I've been stalking for a little bit as well. This one's got a nice wedge set up here. Well, not really a wedge, but just a trend line set up here against 167.03. That would be my trigger. You can see how we're holding over all of these anchored VWAPs. Now, this is what I like to call the anchored VWAP pinch, when price gets contained inside the swing low and the swing high. But we also have the high volume and the month to date that kind of pinched price as well. And then we broke over that yesterday. So watch for the trigger over 167. I would be targeting 171 to 175. And if we break over 175, 182, and then possibly 188 to 187 is another little fib cluster up above there. So that's what I got for today. The last couple of weeks I haven't started off the week with a focus list because things have been really choppy. But we're starting to see a little bit of strength coming into some, individual names and some sectors as well. So this is definitely constructive. Now, of course, we have CPI data coming out on Friday. I don't know, with the government shutdown, I'm not sure how they're going to handle the data release on that. So it'll definitely be interesting. But the other thing to keep in mind too, with Tesla earnings tomorrow, we're really starting to get into the deep of earnings season. So just be mindful of any of the positions that you're holding. Double check that they don't have earnings, or a sector friend doesn't have earnings, because sector names can also affect your particular position. So that's what I got for today. Appreciate you being with me. I'll be back on at 9:40 live for post-open review.